In this video, we have rare historic footage from the National Archives of the Battle of Cisterna. It really brings to home the cost of that battle. This is Brian for AeroRanger Studios and History Dog Live, and I'm at General Darby's monument on the 80th anniversary of his death as he was killed in action on April 30th, 1945, 80 years ago today. General Darby was killed in action in Nago-Torbole in the province of Trentino Alto Adige in northern Italy. Here in Fort Smith, we celebrated the 80th anniversary of the liberation of Cisterna. With the Cisterna Delegation here at this monument, former Mayor Gianni Salas was here, and he was the one responsible for twinning Fort Smith and Cisterna together in 1984, 40 years after the liberation of Cisterna. It was an honor and a privilege to capture that historic event. It was the first time that the Cisterna Delegation had visited Fort Smith in 22 years. When you enter Fort Smith, it'll say Sister City to Cisterna, Italy, and Sister City to Nago-Torbole. Nago-Torbole is where General Darby was killed in the line of duty. But the Battle of Cisterna is where he really earned his fame. If you're a resident of Fort Smith, Arkansas, or even Cisterna, Italy, you should know the story of the Battle of Cisterna, Italy. You really should be able to tell about the stalemate in Italy and the Anzio landing and the Gustav line and how it led to the liberation of Rome from the Nazis. In World War II, the Allies had settled down to a stalemate in central Italy with the Germans as General Kesselring was holding General Montgomery and General Clark at bay from attacking Rome. They established what's called the Gustav line. You should really know what the Gustav line is or was. The Germans' attempt to keep Rome from being attacked by the Allies. As a resident of Cisterna, Italy, or Fort Smith, Arkansas, you really should know the story of how the Battle of Cisterna led to ultimately the liberation of Rome in World War II. Colonel Darby spearheaded that invasion of Anzio. He was later promoted to brigadier general after his death in Nago-Torbole. It also emphasizes the desire of the Italian people to be freed from the Nazi occupation. They rang the bells. They did everything they could to support the American invasion. Also, at the end of this video will be the mayor of Fort Smith speaking right here at this monument, and the vice mayor of Cisterna, Italy, Dr. Maria Enamorado, who will give her speech at this monument during the 80th ceremony. I am extremely grateful for having the opportunity to capture the 80th ceremonies and the 80th anniversary celebrations here in Fort Smith of the Cisterna Delegation's visit after nearly 22 years. I want to give a shout out to Gracie Lynn Aponte and Molly Ann Dunaway for being our virtual tour guides in our main video. I want to thank my nephew John Bentley Jr. for helping me film and helping me capture a lot of that week-long celebration. Also, I want to thank the Fort Smith Museum of History board members that I met while doing this week-long celebration in video series. Ashley Moss, the director of the Darby House, Milo Mansour, the director of the Clayton House, and I also want to thank Jason Mahog, principal of Darby Middle School, for giving us the tour of Darby Middle School with the Cisterna Delegation. I want to thank former Mayor Sandy Sanders for the interview with Gracie Lynn Aponte. I also want to thank Deborah Emery, U.S. Army retired, for helping me film the ceremonies here and explaining about her family's bricks here on the sidewalk. I want to thank the museum executive director, Caroline Spear, for giving me the opportunity to film the Cisterna Delegation's visit here in Fort Smith for that entire week and giving me the opportunity to create this video series here on my AeroRanger Studios channel, and for giving us the opportunity to film inside the museum in the Darby exhibit with Gracie Lynn Aponte and Molly Ann Dunaway. I also want to thank my cousin, Chief Danny Baker of the Fort Smith Police Department, for inviting me to capture this week-long celebration of the Cisterna visit here in Fort Smith, as he is the president of the board of directors of the Fort Smith Museum of History. I also want to thank Dr. Brandon Chase Goldsmith of the Fort Smith International Film Festival for allowing me to use some of his photos in our main video that's attached at the end of this video. It was an honor last year to accompany the Cisterna Delegation and the police escort to the airport to see them off back to Italy, where we came away with lifelong friendships. So without further ado, let's get started into the 80th memorial of the Battle of Cisterna and the mayor's speeches at the end of this video, and the links to the rest of the series that I had the privilege and honor to produce here on the AeroRanger Studios channel. Thank you for watching.
The Allies had taken all of southern Italy and ran into bad weather, rain, and mud. They were waiting for supplies and new replacement soldiers to arrive. Meanwhile, the Germans retreated to central Italy and created a defensive line called the Gustav Line.
The Germans laid mines along the Gustav Line, thousands of them. They were called S-mines or bouncing Bettys. When a soldier stepped on it, the mine would bounce up to waist level and detonate, killing soldiers around the blast area. To this day, there are still active mines along the old Gustav Line, making that part of Italy some of the most dangerous terrain on Earth.
The Germans and the Allies had settled down to a stalemate in central Italy. As the Allies were pushing northward, the Germans established a final defensive line to hold the Allies from Rome, called the Gustav Line. The Nazis poured everything they had into the Gustav Line to buy as much time as possible, holding the Allies back. General Kesselring, who was Hitler's #1 general in Italy, was a brilliant tactician, and he gathered his staff to discuss what the Allies might try next. And because the majority of the Allied navy and transport ships were on the west side of Italy, all eyes were on Rome and the area of Rome. General Kesselring anticipated the Allies would try to land behind the Gustav Line, and he was right to suspect Anzio would be the target.
General Eisenhower, America's highest-ranking general in the European, African, and Middle East theater, held a meeting with his ranking general in Italy, General Mark Clark, where they decided that Clark's Deputy General John Paul Lucas would command the amphibious landing at Anzio behind the Gustav Line. It was decided that Colonel Darby of Arkansas would spearhead the invasion with 3 battalions of his Rangers, 767 in all, to surprise the Germans and take Cisterna in the suburbs of Rome. They would fight through Cisterna and establish a forward operating base in the Alban Hills overlooking Highway 6 and 7, where the supply line of General Kesselring supplying the Gustav Line would be cut off. This forward operating base would provide one of the launching points for the Allies to eventually attack Rome. But the Germans were ready. It would be the worst massacre of American Army Rangers ever. Anzio, codenamed Operation Shingle, would be one of the bloodiest, costly invasions in American history. When it was over, Colonel Darby's Rangers would be lost, and General Lucas would be relieved of command. Although Colonel Darby's Rangers were lost as the Nazis prevailed in this battle, the Rangers' heroic efforts severely weakened the German defenses, which tipped the balance of the stalemate in favor of the Allies. In all, 7,858 Americans were killed and thousands wounded.
forgive me for my English. I am Maria Sciodenificetti. I was born in Cisterna and grew up in Anzio. My grandmother told me the stories about the Americans coming to Anzio to free Cisterna. She was so afraid after Americans landed. At Anzio, you could hear bells ringing all over Cisterna and all over Lazio. The people were so excited and they all prayed for the Americans to win the fight against the Nazis. Our people wanted our nation back. The people hated them and they could not talk or say something against the Nazi or else be punished, put in the prison, sometimes killed. They wanted the Nazis gone. God bless every single Darby Ranger. Cisterna never ever forgot. We remember the Battle of Cisterna every year, putting flowers on the graves of the Rangers. Darby Rangers try to deliver us from evil. They give their lives for us to liberoci del mali. Now we celebrate 80 years of freedom. God bless America, amen, and again I say, amen.
Padre nostro che sei nei cieli, sia santificato il tuo nome, venga il tuo regno, sia fatta la tua volontà, come in cielo così in terra. Dacci oggi il nostro pane quotidiano e rimetti a noi i nostri debiti, come noi li rimettiamo ai nostri debitori, e non ci indurre in tentazione, ma liberaci dal male.
Amen!
When the balance of power shifted towards the Allies, the residents of Rome began protesting the German occupation. Italian men refused to join the German army and rioting broke out all over the capital.
The Nazis began brutalizing the civilian population when they began their northward evacuation of Rome. They raped women and children and looted and burned businesses.
The Nazis destroyed needed infrastructure, power stations, utilities, and railroad tracks.
The Germans destroyed the Roman sewage and water infrastructure and poisoned the water. They left the Italian population for dead. Let's go now to General Darby's monument in Fort Smith, Arkansas.
This park stands as a living tribute to our shared past, as a beacon for our future, as we break ground today on the expansion that will further enrich this place of honor, enduring that future generations will know the story and strong ties between Fort Smith, Arkansas and Cisterna, Italy. This expansion is a symbol of our ongoing commitment to preserve and celebrate the rich history that unites us all. To the delegation from Cisterna, thank you for joining us on this special occasion. Our connections, founded in the valor of General William O. Darby and solidified through the bonds of peace and friendship, grow stronger each passing year. Together, we will continue to honor our shared legacies and look forward to the many, many more years of collaboration between our two great cities. Let us lay the wreath, we will lay the wreath, in solemn tribute to those who fought for freedom and to the enduring friendship between Fort Smith, Arkansas, and Cisterna, Italy. May this park continue to stand as a symbol of courage, resilience, and unity. And again, thank all of you for being here.
Come on!
Ladies and gentlemen, it is my immense pleasure to introduce to you today the Vice Mayor of Cisterna. This is Maria Innamorato.
I greet you all from the community of Cisterna and from Italy. To be here in this place so full of meaning, so full of patriotic values, sacrifice, and the courage is truly moving. So many young people, some of them very young, who in various missions made the ultimate sacrifice, their lives, in defense of people oppressed by dictatorship and deprived of the noble principles of freedom and democracy, just as the people of Italy and Cisterna did 18 years ago. After the Anzio landing on 22nd January 1944, Cisterna played a strategic role in the liberation of Rome and the Allied advance towards central and northern Italy. The liberation of Cisterna for the Nazi Germans was essential, fundamental to the liberation of the Italian people from the oppression of the enemy. For this reason, on the night of 30 January 1944, the Rangers attempted nighttime infiltration in Cisterna. It was a fierce, brutal battle for 767 soldiers under General William Orlando Darby, with many casualties and prisoners. The 1st and 3rd Ranger battalions were never reconstituted, but their deeds remain etched in the history and memories of the Cisterna community. To them, to the Rangers, we have dedicated a street. To General Darby, we have named a school, and the columns of Isola Bella pierced by the bullets of the Battle of 29 and 30th of January 1944 are a monument. The twinning with the city of Fort Smith is the temple of the sacrifice. Today, 8 years after those events, 40 years after the twinning, we do not forget. We honor with great strength and awareness the heroic deeds of those who fought selflessly for the freedom of a people that was not their own, and he now rests here in well-deserved place. Cisterna and Italy say thank you.
Grazie mille. As you just heard, very moving words, and that is what moves us forward to honor this relationship. Mayor McGill, would you mind wrapping things up?
Again, thank you for being here. Gianni, come over here. Mayor Sanders, come over here. This gentleman has nurtured and kept our relationship together for decades. And we thank Mayor Sanders for being the connection to Fort Smith that has made this special day very possible. And again, thank you for being here, my friend. Also, I would like to thank our junior ROTC. We're so very proud of them. We cannot have an event unless we make sure they bring their honor guard. And we do have the largest JROTC group in the state of Arkansas. And with this, again, thank all of you for being here. What a wonderful day as we celebrate the union between Cisterna and Fort Smith. And we're looking to the future, and I can't wait to go to see that beautiful country.
Would like to thank the city of Cisterna, Italy, Vice Mayor Innamorato for being here. I'm eternally grateful for the life and freedom that I have because of men like General Darby. I'm also grateful for the cultural collaboration that we share with our longtime sister city, Cisterna, Italy, and our newest sister, Nago-Torbole, Italy. I believe we were made better by these relationships, and I suspect General Darby would encourage us in this endeavor. After all, he gave his life defending them.